Christian Coach Mike, thanks so much for coming out to the camp this past weekend. Apologize for the late video. We're having some issues with Coach's Eye and the new Galaxy Note 7, but hopefully we'll be able to get this out soon to you. Let's look at the raw data just on your height, about 5'4", 64 inches, your stride coming out at 63 and a quarter. Your stride length is fine, but how you're landing at the end of that stride will go into is what you need to work on. You have an early drive, which instead of driving into the front foot, you're driving early, which is just where you're coming vertically down on that front foot rather than linear. So I'll explain that in a minute. Your mass is about 150, so you have good mass for your size. Fastball came in about 67. Change up a little bit hard at about 61. I would work with your pitching coach and try to get about a 10-mile-an-hour difference on your fastball and your off-speed pitch. One of the things that I liked about you when I first saw you throw is I saw that you did have that early movement to the plate that the AMSI studies talk about, high-velocity pitchers versus low-velocity pitchers, that they get their body going sooner to the plate than low-velocity pitchers. So by you getting in that hip position and turning early, you're getting things started. I would just recommend that you work on more of, you get a good hip position where that's in the right position where you get it to lead with the hips, but just get that back leg going a little bit. If you remember that one picture that had the 5 pitchers where they had that forward lean like Randy Johnson versus the other ones that were straight up, that's going to help you in reference to bring momentum into that front foot at the end of the stride. All right, after that, then you're doing a heavy load. That's what I was going to say. Your hips should go forward and down at the same time. So that's why we get a little bit more forward movement, because now you're going to see, since you don't have a lot of that forward movement, you have some, but then you're seeing that quick drop. Okay, so you're seeing that quick drop right there. As you bring out the front leg, you have what's called an ipsilateral tilt where you're leaning forward a little bit. I would just be careful that I think there could be a reason. We don't know why you're doing an early leg drive, maybe to come out of that ipsilateral tilt. Ipsilateral tilt is where you're leaning forward, where your body is leaning forward. All I would do is just straighten that up a little bit more toward a contralateral tilt, which is the opposite. And all that means when you're in this position, rather than leaning forward, is you just keep a little bit straighter. And these are the things that we experiment around with to get away from this. And this is what I want to show you. As you're going into your stride, you're seeing that you're launching. See how you're launching up? You're launching up way too early. That needs to happen. That foot drive, the reason you're going up in the air is our force vector, which is from our ankle to our knee, is pointed in this direction. So when you drive, that's the direction that you're going to go up, and that's exactly what's happening. So you're seeing yourself launch up in the air, where we don't want to launch up in the air. We want to get that force vector from the ankle to the knee pretty much in somewhere in the 40s, if we can get, so that when you drive, you're driving into the front foot, which then in turn pushes power up through the body. So let's just go through this and watch. There you are driving up in the air, and so now that you're up, now you're going to come straight down. Now watch your front foot as you come straight down. It actually pulls back and lands. So there's really not much of a drive into this. So ideally our back leg needs to be like this, and when we land, our front leg needs to be into kind of this position right here. It's almost like an open triangle at the bottom. And that's the best way that you're able to push that force up into your arm. So just delay that drive of the backside. And one of the reasons that I think you're opening up a little bit early, since we are using the lower half, but we're using it too early, so that energy doesn't transfer properly up through the body, then you're going to see at the end of the stride, which is where your foot lands, you're going to see that your upper body already started throwing, because there really wasn't much power coming out of the lower body. So you'll see that a little bit more on the front side, but we can definitely see that at the end of the stride phase, you've already started throwing. That was the other scientific study that we went over that talked about high velocity and low velocity pitchers, that high velocity pitchers will make a distinct difference between their stride and their throwing phase. In other words, they are not throwing until their stride phase ends. So let's look at the front view for you, Christian. Going into leg lift right here. Straightening out of the leg, that's just a style. You have a flexed leg where some people will flex and then extend out. Other people start that extension early. You see a lot of Asian pitchers will do that. Japan over in there, and they do that. Taiwan, they reach out like that. It's just a style. See, there's your drive right there. This is where you start to lift up in the air as you come out of that, what I call that ipsilateral tilt. So this is the ipsilateral tilt right there. So I'm not sure if you're driving to try to get yourself out of that. Well, don't put yourself in it. I mean, as I would try to fix this, there's multiple ways you can try to fix this. But one of the first ways I would try is try not leaning over. Start there at your set. See how your body's positioned right there, and then do everything the same. Drive with your leg, but keep your upper body in that position. That may help you drive a little bit later. Okay, so then as your foot lands, you're going to see we had no power out of the lower half, so that's why your upper body compensated and you pulled out early. Here's your contralateral tilt. Good. Your body's leaning to that side. Good position, even with the glove side right there. Elbow above the shoulder. Good job. And let's go into, finally, as we look into the backside. Leg out. I'm just looking at the load. Okay, so we have a good load before you start jumping up in the air. You got a good load there. We just have to hold that off until later at the end of the stride. And then this is how I like. You're leaning back with a contralateral tilt. This is your contralateral tilt, like a bow, face that way. And then you're going to see your elbow come up right here, which is good. Like to see that. The extension on that is good. Just leaning to the glove side. That's more of a contralateral tilt. And then releasing the ball. Good. Okay, so there's a couple things to work for. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to Coach Mark. He'll be happy to give you my number. And wish you the best. Thanks again for coming.